All right, guys, here we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have figured it out finally. We're on live with Pantheon Radio. Thanks everybody for tuning in once again via the stream as well as Pantheon Radio. It took me a minute here, and I apologize for everybody that's watching on stream, but I struggled greatly with getting Pantheon Radio application up so that we could be live. And now that we're up, we're going to continue moving forward for the night. So thank you all for being patient with me. I've been trying to figure this out for a few days now. I formatted my computer, and it's just been a problem ever since. However, we're back up and running. Things look good. Hopefully the sound's coming through just fine for everybody over the radio. If not, then we'll definitely take that feedback. Let me know. We'll do our best we can. But, actually, let's see, Pantheon Radio just tuned in here. We can catch up and figure it out later. I got it figured out. I figured it out. I actually I had a typo in there when I reset up everything. So, you know, it's on me. Of course, it's on me, as always. But tonight, I just wanted to sit back, relax, have a good conversation with a few guys that are jumping in Discord with me, and just talk about the streams that we had over the last 2 days. So I'm going to go ahead and let you know that if you're not aware, we had 2 streams. We had the first stream being yesterday with Koopa Troopa 787, and Koopa had a stream where he was playing as the Shaman in Black Rose Keep. And then we had a stream tonight where the Hive Leader was playing as a Cleric in Black Rose Keep. So I had a lot of fun listening to and watching the streams just because I'm primarily looking to be a Shaman or a Cleric come release. So I was really excited about these streams, had a great time watching them. But I got a few guys that are going to talk to me a little bit more about that. Right before we jump into that, again, thanks everyone for tuning in on Pantheon Radio. I will go ahead and remind you, because we're coming up on the end of it, we do have the Pantheon Radio competition still in effect. So if you haven't already, make sure you go check out the competition. Just go to pantheonradio.com. At the top right hand corner, you're going to see an enter to win button there. Click on that. Submit a 50 to 150 word spoof commercial based around bards. Like I said, guys, these guys do an amazing, phenomenal job when it comes to spoof commercials. So submit that there. You got a chance to win some neat prizes. I can't say enough about the mug. I don't know if y'all saw the mug I put on Twitter, but they sent me a mug. It's heat changing, so when you put coffee in it or put hot water or whatever you have for your tea or something, it turns like this from dark color to this really white. It turns to white, and then like you can really see the label and your name and stuff like that. It's just really cool, guys. So if you haven't already, be sure to check that out. Really excited about the mug myself. I know that some people that might not be their thing, but for me it was really cool. So I'm excited about it. I'm hoping that everyone else is as well. Make sure you go to pantheonradio.com, enter the competition to win, and, you know, best of luck to everyone out there because they do a phenomenal job, like I said, with those Swift commercials. So on that note, we'll go ahead and jump into Discord, and I'm going to talk some stream with these guys because it's been some really cool stuff over the last week. So let me see if I can, just by the way, I can't control these guys. What's said in the next hour, just stand by. Just stand by. All right, I gave them a warning. I'll let you off the leash. What's up, guys? So I'll go ahead and introduce everybody just so everyone's aware. Right now we have Dayhawk in here with us. We have Dragon Priest, and we have Naylan. So as they're talking, I'm not going to stop to make them introduce themselves or, you know, tell you who they are or anything of that nature. But I'm just letting you know what their names are. So if they do say anything that's just really, really bad, you know who to go find, and it's not Saicred. So we all good on that?
Bring it on.
Oh, all right, guys. So like I said, I spent most of the streams, well, on Wednesday or Thursday night, I spent most of the stream putting my kids to bed. I watched the stream afterwards, and I saw a lot of things because I'm looking to main a Shaman myself. Right now, that's my primary choice. So I saw a lot of things, and I was like, man, I would do that differently, or I would try to do this, or maybe this would work better if I did it this way versus that way. But I had a lot of fun watching the Shaman play, even though there were some struggles, especially towards the boss there. They really struggled on the boss, but there were some things that were done or being done that I was like, man, I wish I could try something a little different to see what the outcome was, what that changed, you know, without changing anything else, like just to change certain mechanics that I would do myself. I don't know, guys, but for me, it seems like with the Shaman, because they have focus on that, like the heal over time, and then they had that group heal. I don't know if y'all noticed that. That group heal was devastatingly awesome. Uh, I mean, I don't know. Like, to me, that seemed really, really strong, really good. I don't know if y'all noticed that or not.
Yeah, I did, and I also noticed it was very much a major aggro draw. Also,
Yes, yes. Yeah, it was like as soon as he as soon as he hit them with that, the whole group, you saw their health, I mean, shoot up. It looked like almost 20-30% at least. It took like what, 3 or 4 ticks it seemed, but it was the immediate heal on the target, and then the rest of them would just kind of tick up for after, over the next few seconds. And I mean, it was a pretty substantial heal, but yeah, like you said, it looked like it cost a lot of mana, and the aggro, woof, you just, yeah, you better be prepared as a shaman. If you're throwing a lot of group heals, I can see you pulling mad aggro. I don't know though. Like, when I'm thinking of playing a shaman, like, one of the things I noticed was it seems to me like with the abilities, I think the only two heals that I saw were the one, like, heal over time, of course, that he has. It's kind of the main heal, and then he has the group heal, or the single target with group, with kind of like an AOE type heal on it as well.
Yeah, on the shaman, that's all I really saw was a single target heal over time, and then like a group heal over time.
And he had a couple. He had like a debuff up and a couple other things like that.
Well, I mean, so I'm thinking through. I would imagine that if I'm playing a shaman, the slow, like, and I heard this right. Make sure I'm right on this, guys. The slow that he had, like, you could apply that on a CC mob and it wouldn't break CC. Only damage would.
I think that's what they said. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm almost positive that's what I heard. So I'll go with it until I'm told I'm wrong, which probably happened. No, but I'm almost positive that you can. And to me, I don't know. That seems vital. Like, for example, if I know that I've got a mob that like front loads a lot of DPS, I'm almost thinking, would it be beneficial to throw like a CC on the mob, like right out the gate, stack slows, get all the slows and hots going, and then allow the tank to engage or something like that? Like, I'm just thinking that kind of outside the box. I mean, to me, that seems like it might be viable.
Yeah, I thought about, like, why didn't the shaman like pull with the slow and then quickly have the warriors pick it up? That way the slow is already in, and now the shaman can focus on healing. I wouldn't mind have seen an outcome of that scenario.
Yeah, well, and so, like, okay, well, and one of the things I wonder as well. So, Day, I know you're looking to play a paladin, right?
Right.
So I know they had 2 warriors on there, and with the shaman being those heals over time, so they look pretty potent. They look pretty strong, but still, it's a heal over time. Like, it's not going to be that burst heal that you would see with a cleric. But I would think maybe a paladin would be able to help supplement a little bit in certain cases. Like,
oh yeah.
Do you think like changing even just that one of the warriors out for a paladin would have made a huge difference? I mean, just from your expectations or thoughts on what a paladin might be.
Well, considering that I really don't know the direction they're going with the paladin because not enough information. But I'll take in consideration a paladin from EverQuest. I would say yeah. On that low of a level though, I don't know. I know they would have had single target heals. Maybe a group heal or a very weak group heal. So it could have definitely helped out. The shaman wouldn't have been so spread across the board trying to heal everyone and stuff. He could have focused on the main tank, and the paladin could have kind of helped spot heal here and there.
I'm not sure that they would have any sort of like group heals. I don't know. Maybe they will. I don't know. I don't know if y'all have any feedback on that, but I don't think they would have any type of group heals. I could see them having maybe like a small single target heal for themselves or for like group, for their group mates at times.
That goes back to what I said. We don't know the direction that they're going. In EverQuest, Paladins did have a group heal. Wasn't a very powerful group heal, but it was a bandage in the group. And it was what they mostly used at raids. I remember when I raid, my job was try to keep the group alive to the best of my ability. And if the damage on the group was so bad, then the healer would try to help heal. Otherwise, the cleric in the group is in the chain heal rotation. So
Okay.
as long as the group wasn't taking too much damage, the Paladin could keep them alive because they're just throwing bandages on everyone.
Okay, that's fair. Now, lazy threw out something. I don't know what y'all's thoughts on that, but absorption shields. I I'll be honest with you. I know that back in the old, there was some old podcasts that were released, like some roundtables that were released talking about the cleric and some of their abilities and things like that. Where you might have a devout cleric versus a resolute cleric, and some of their abilities are kind of would line up to more absorption based versus heals and something like that. I won't go too deep into that because I know that's been removed here recently. So I'm not going to dive into that, but I will say just the thought of an absorption shield with something like a Paladin would be really interesting to me. I don't know, because I mean, if you're talking about mitigating some of that damage, I mean that's the biggest problem that I saw was just that burst damage was insane from what was it, Fiona? Is that how you say the name?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, just in absolutely absurd burst damage, which is really cool. I mean, I think that for a level 20 or so fight, that's really cool. But yeah, if you had some sort of like, I know the tank, they said they had what, Will to Live on the Warriors, which kind of helped with some of that. But at the same time, I don't know. I think an absorption shield of sorts would be maybe even a little more powerful in that circumstance, especially with the combination of some sort of like hot on you as well as absorption shield. You might be able to sustain that burst damage. And it seemed like once they got past that initial burst damage, they kind of got into a flow of things and they were able to somewhat sustain themselves. But that initial just all three mobs and the boss just going to town. I mean, yeah, I think that there's definitely possible ways that you could have done that a little differently. One of the things I noticed in the stream today was, and I know people, they heard this and they might not realize it, but they were 2 levels higher in today's stream. And the group comp was a little different. But the one thing that I noticed that was such a big factor for me was the level difference. It seems like to me, every stream I've watched, and I don't know if y'all have caught this or not, but it seems like there's a very tight level band on the mobs. Meaning, if they're 3 levels below a mob, it seems to be substantially more difficult than if they're, say, just a level or 2 below. So, I mean, I'm not sure if that's a thing. It just seems like when I'm watching, that kind of seems like the picture to me. It seems like if they're in a group of 6, for say, and there's a mob that's 2 levels higher than them, that mob's difficult, but it's doable. But like as soon as you're like the 3 to 4 level difference, it's substantially different as far as difficulty goes. I mean, it's almost like the tanks take a lot more damage. The healers can't sustain or can't heal through through it for one. And it's just all in all, it just seems like each level has such a significant value. And from what I've seen, and maybe I'm kind of over exaggerating that, but I don't know if y'all have caught that or not. That's just something that seems to me that I've caught.
Seemed like the con system from EverQuest to me, where if it's the same level or maybe 1 level above you or something like that, it's a certain color. If it's like 2 or 3 levels above, it's another color. If it's like 5 levels or higher, it's red. Very likely you're not going to be able to do it. That's the feeling that I got. If it's white, it's basically your level, maybe your level 2 difference. If it's yellow, it's like maybe 2, maybe 3 levels. It's going to be a lot harder. Yeah. It could be doable, but it's going to be a challenge. And then anything beyond that is just going to be red.
So, I mean, I don't know. I think Vex here said in EQ2 it was kind of like that. If it was a red con mob, then it was more or less impossible because you couldn't land abilities, the spells didn't hit, damage. Like, I'm thinking through, like, okay, so if I think of like AC, for example, to help mitigate damage or something like that, or even just like your skills, like if you have like a parry skill or something, to help you mitigate damage as a tank, like something that helps in any way, shape, or form as far as a skill goes or a stat even to help mitigate some damage, it seems like maybe those 1 to 2 levels could mean the make or break point. Like you could maybe parry 1 or 2 extra times, which really helps mitigate some of that damage, or you could block 1 or 2 extra times, which really helps mitigate that damage, or you're, maybe a buff from a cleric gives some sort of like armor, and that armor from like, let's say that a level 18 buff versus a level 22 buff has a substantial difference as well, so again, I don't know. It just seems to me like that to me. I kind of like it when I'm thinking about it. When I'm just like thinking through it, I kind of like that idea because it really makes me, as a player go, okay, I'm sitting here, I'm in said dungeon, I've got a camp set up, we're grinding out some levels, and I get to a point where I see, Fiona walk by, and I'm like, okay, I'm level 21 for say, my entire group's level 21. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, is it worth trying now, or should we wait to try to grind out a level or two before we try it again? Like, let's say she cons orange or some, I don't know, some reddish color. So she's not quite like full red, but she's not even con as well. So I know she's a little bit higher than us, but she's not like multiple levels higher. So I'm like, okay, so I'm sitting there and I'm trying to actually make that decision, that risk versus reward. Is it worth attempting her now and risking dying, or should we try to get at least one more level, before we do that? Like, I don't know, that sounds to me, I like that idea. I like that idea. It makes me question my decision. It makes me actually think about it. And again, that's where that death comes into play too, the corpse run. Because it doesn't seem to me like I want to be trying to get into, even Black Rose Keep or anywhere naked at any point in time. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know how y'all feel about that. Like, do you feel like the level bands, like if, for example, if you were 2 levels, 3 levels below a mob and you couldn't do that mob, but one additional level in your group made the difference, like made a substantial difference to where you were able to do the mob, like, do you feel that that's a good thing, or do you feel like that's too tight, or like, what's your level range? Like, what's your idea of too tight versus too loose?
Well, for me, whenever I played my Paladin in EverQuest, I always stuck to dark blue and white mobs, which were my level, maybe a level above, or they were like a level below, or 2, maybe 3 levels below. That's what I grind on. Now, if I got buffed, really good buffs, I would tempt those yellow mobs. But without it, no, I didn't do it. Now, if they were undead, maybe, depending on what type of mob. Like a regular melee skeleton, yeah, I'll tempt it. If it's a spellcaster undead, no.
Well, that's because you played a paladin, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, something else to keep in mind, when you're in a full group, a mob that's equal to you should basically be a challenge for a solo, maybe for 2 people. Once you get more people, you want to go with a little bit higher mob, because the lack.
Oh, Dragon, you cut out, buddy. You left us. Maybe it's on my end. Is it on my end, Day? Hold on, guys. I'll be right back. I'm going to shut down Discord and come back. Dragon was telling me something. Zach. Sound. Dragon was telling us something good there. Let me shut it down real quick and come back.
You're like,
I broke it. That's all I gotta say. I've officially broketed Discord. Okay, am I back? Day, can you hear me? Nayland, can you hear me? Dragon, can you hear me? How about now, guys? Can y'all hear me? Testing. Man, this is going very well.
I hear you.
Nah, I hear you.
Okay, I changed Discord servers. Sorry about that. So, Nayland, you good as well?
Yep.
All right. Sorry about that, guys. I don't know what was going on. Like, you were talking, Dragon, and all of a sudden you just went blank on me. So, hey, It is what it is. But yeah, you were
Yeah,
saying.
it went quiet, and I was like, "What happened?"
Yeah, sorry about that. So you were saying, let's try to go back to you were saying white, maybe 1 to 2 people should have a challenge with that type of mob, but you, as a group, you want to look to kind of go for those. We'll say, I mean, I'm trying to think of like a color scheme. So let's say like a yellow or orange or red, even. Like I think, let's just say in that order. So you're looking at like a yellow or red for like a group of like 5 or 6, and you're thinking that should be what they should go for.
Right, because that's increasing the challenge, and you want to increase that because of the the experience involved. So the higher the mob, of course, obviously the more challenge, but you want to make sure that it's not too far ahead of you, obviously. But when you got a group of 6, it's like you're increasing your individual skill level, what's the word? By each person you add, so that increases your overall skill level versus the mobs. So it makes sense to go for the higher level mobs when you're in a group.
Okay, that's fair. So let me ask this though. So as a group of 6, do you think it should be a yellow? Okay, let me rephrase that. For me, I kind of think of it as the game's being guided toward group content, right? So
Correct.
For me, I think that when it comes to like a 3-person group, a white con should be solid, should be sufficient. Like that should be a decent fight that should require, a little bit of effort to, take down as a white con. I mean, I'm wondering, is a white con based off of a solo or is it based off of a group, especially in a dungeon?
It's based off just you. I pulled up their request consider system.
Okay.
And according to it, if it's 3 levels or higher, it is considered a red con. If it's 1 to 2, it's yellow. If it's same level as you, it is considered, they say black or white, but I don't ever remember seeing a black con mob in the game. -1 to -3 was blue, and -4 was green. Now, as you go up in levels, that changes and stuff, but just the basic system, that's what it was. I think I like that system. I've seen other MMOs, like they change those colors around, and that messes with me. I like the system the way it is, but I think what I would prefer is like if it's the same level as you, let it be white. If it's 1 level or 2 levels above, let it be yellow. If it's 3, maybe 4 levels, give it that orange color where it's not yellow, it's not red, but it's in the middle. And then if it's 5 levels above, it is red. And then do the same thing if it's below me. It goes from blue, maybe the light blue to green, and then the gray if it's really far out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it's blue to white, meaning a little lower or your level, I think if you're in a group situation, you should be able to pull those all day as long as you have a decent makeup.
Yeah, because I mean, if it's only like 3 levels above you, and you're not taking the group in the situation, yeah, that's going to be rough for you. But in a group, you might be able to take that, but you don't know how many levels above it is for you. Adding that extra layer in there to let you know, hey, it's a orange con mob. It's only 3, maybe 4 levels above me. I'm in a group with 5 other individuals, 6 total. We could probably take that. But that red mob over there, I don't know how far out there he is in terms of level. I think adding that extra color to level would be very, very helpful in that type of system.
Well, okay, so I guess what I'm asking is, and Lazy said something here, and it's kind of what I'm getting at. So what do you do when a green con mob is an elite, we'll say, or a named, and hits like a yellow? So I'm kind of thinking this through, and I'm like, okay, if I'm making a game, this is just theory at this point, of course. Just so everyone's aware, listening to the podcast or watching on Twitch, this is complete theory crafting at this point for me. So if I'm looking at a mob and I see it's white, it's my level. Like, I'm honestly expecting that to mean that it's at my level, but the difficulty of that mob would probably need about 2 to 3 players, because I'm looking at it in the mind of a group content, would need 2 to 3 players at least to do that mob. So, I mean, for me, I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. I'm thinking that white con would probably be something that we could pull all day with a group of 6. Yeah, of course, but I think it should be challenging. Like, and I think if you were ever trying to solo a white con, you might want to not. Like, you would want to look for lower cons to solo, and circumstances dictating, of course. But in most cases, you would want to look for lower levels. And if you had 2 white cons on you ever, like as a solo or even as a small group of 2, maybe even 3, that would be a real struggle for you. That would be my thoughts. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of thinking it through, and I'm thinking of group oriented, and I'm thinking if you make it so that like a white con is my level and it's something that I would see as an easy opponent, then that would mean pretty much every time I'm going to look for a mob, I'm looking for something that's pretty much almost red in the group of 6. Instead of I'm looking for something that's maybe, I'm just going to assume that we have like, let's say we have like multiple tiers. I don't know. I'm just going to throw like multiple tiers to kind of put like level ranges on it. So let's say I have a yellow mob, and that yellow mob's 1 to 2 levels higher than me. And let's say like I have a, I don't know. Okay, so instead of having a red that's 3 levels, let's say like I have a red that's like 5 levels, and let's say I have like a different color between there, like an orange or something. So it's like 2 levels like yellow, 2 levels orange, and then like red plus, like 5 plus or something. Like, let's make a bigger range there. So even at that range, I'm kind of thinking in my mind, I wouldn't suspect that for a group of 6, I would want to always go after mobs that are like orange to me. I would more or less want to go after mobs that are yellow. I think orange would mean that it's very difficult even for a group of 6, or like it's a very difficult challenge, meaning if I pulled 2 or 3 of those, it would be a real bad situation. That type of deal. That's just my thoughts. Like, I don't know do y'all feel like, let's say that you had like 3 different types or 3 different flavors of it, and you had like a 2-level range between each one up until you got to red, and then red was just red until, forever. But let's say that you had like 1 to 2 levels higher than you was yellow, and like 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 levels higher than you was orange, and 5 levels plus was red. I mean, would you think that a group of 6 should always go after those orange mobs, or would you think that like it should be difficult enough, the content should be difficult enough that white and yellow mobs would be sustainable, but it would be challenging?
I don't know. I feel like it's something that the party would have to fill out. Party makeup, who's playing, how good they're playing the class and stuff. I feel like that's a huge factor, because I remember in EverQuest we used to grind on white mobs all the time when we were leveling AAs, but there were just some mobs that we avoided because we couldn't take it. Mostly casters or some other arch type mob or something. We would just avoid them, even though they con white to us. We didn't touch them until they were bluish to us. It's just the party makeup and stuff, I think, is a huge factor into that.
Right. One thing I was thinking, when it comes to grouping and the con of mobs is, I don't know if you play Dungeons and Dragons or not, but if you look like a lot of the mobs, they have a CR rating, which is their challenge rating, and which is basically what the con system is. Only it doesn't give you, an actual rating number with it. But what, I would like to see, kind of like, you have your solo CR that you have for, your own personal CR versus the mob's CR. And that's how it cons, white, yellow, whatever to you. And then as you join a group and, the more members join, the overall CR of the group rises. So when you con a mob, it gives you the challenge rating for the group versus the individual.
Okay. So Nayland, do you have anything on that? I mean, I don't want to overshadow you here.
No, I don't know. I mean, I think usually what I do is rely on kind of the highest level player in the group, say, hey, what's this thing conning to you if you're the highest? And if it's still, red or whatever being 5 levels plus, and then I would say, maybe we don't want to touch this guy. Maybe we need to move to a different area.
I know as playing a tank, that's something that I have to consider when I'm out there. If we don't have someone pulling for us and I'm the puller, that's something that I have to take in consideration, the mobs that I'm pulling. I figured it's the same for someone who's playing the class that can pull mobs for the group, that's something that they have to take in consideration. Can we do this?
Absolutely. Yeah. I hope that is the case. I really do. I hope that when whoever's pulling for the group, I hope that they really have to take in consideration what the con is, because I mean, to me, if you don't, then you're just kind of stumbling your way through it. Oh, okay. Hold on a second. So, hey, Joppa. For the sake of clarity in this discussion, currently a mob my same level cons white, 1 level above me cons yellow, 2 to 3 levels above me cons dark yellow, 4 levels above me cons orange, 5 levels above me cons red. Oh, sweet. Okay. So I guess
Sweet.
I guess for me the question is, it still comes down to like, so. And I mean, Joppa, of course, you don't have to answer this. We're just theory crafting here. So thank you for that information. I appreciate that. But yeah, I think for me, the question comes down though, like, even if it's my same level, is the difficulty of the mob, is it difficult enough that 2 to 3 people still presents a challenge, or is it to where it's, at that difficulty level where, solo capabilities are there for a white con? That's kind of the gist of it. It's, as a person, as an individual, am I saying that, let's say, as we see here, 5 levels plus, if I have a group of 6 and we're going after white cons, does that mean that they're just gonna fall over for us, or does that mean that they're still going to present some sort of challenge for us, some sort of they have a big enough health pool, they do enough damage to where 1 or 2 white cons can make us as a group have to just pay attention maybe a little bit. And then once you get into a yellow con, which is, as we see here, a light yellow is 1 above. So maybe let's get into dark yellow. So let's go dark yellow, 2 to 3 levels above. And then as you get into dark yellow, if you're pulling 2 to 3 mobs that are dark yellow, would that not be like a substantial challenge for the group of 6? That, these are only 2 to 3 levels higher, but it's just the difficulty of the mobs. I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting at here. Con or not con, is the difficulty of the mobs kind of geared to where you as an individual are going to look at a white con in the solo aspect and go, I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that kind of trouble. Instead, with a small group, you go, yeah, we can handle that. That's kind of where I'm getting at. So does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think white con in a group of 6 should fall over pretty easy. I think you start to worry if you get 2 or 3 ads, then you're in some trouble.
Okay. I mean, I know that day we had a conversation about this a little bit as well at one point. It seems like it might have been with someone else, but I'm pretty sure it was you. I talked to you a lot for some reason. I don't know why.
Because I'm cute.
Oh, but I mean, what do you think? Like, is it unfair to think that if I'm getting two dark yellow mobs that are 2 to 3 levels higher than me, that doesn't pose a very difficult challenge, or at least make us have to do something like CC, or just we want to control the mobs because damage output's going to be pretty high, or they're not going to take nearly as much damage, they're going to take a little bit of time to get down maybe, or something like that, like they're actually going to be challenging content wise.
See, for me, it's I hear what y'all are saying, but for me, I'm just looking back at my experience from playing any MMO. It's something that you just have to fill out with your group. If you go into an area and you got a really good group, really good players, yeah, y'all might be able to try some of that stronger content. But if you don't have that makeup, that's something whoever's pulling or whoever's tanking is going to have to make a decision. Hey, we can do these mobs, but I feel like if we go a little higher, it may not be we might wipe. That's something that the tank's going to have to call, and the puller's going to have to call, because they're the ones that's in the front lines. So I feel like that's something that they would have to fill out.
So the healer doesn't matter. I see. I get it.
Oh no, I mean,
I get it.
As a tank, that's something that I have to take in consideration. If the healer is able to keep me alive, but I'm getting hit like a trunk, but we have a lot of downtime because the healer is just spending all the mana to keep me alive every single pull, then that tells me as a tank, we may be getting good experience. We may be able to do this content, but it's only going to take one slip up and it's a wipe. Maybe we need to take a step back. But as the tank, that's something that I have to pay attention to. I have to, because the person keeping me alive is basically an extension of my character, is the way I've always looked at it. If the healer is having an easy time keeping me alive, is able to keep mana going, maybe we can try stronger content. I'm comfortable with that. But if I'm able to take it and not die, but the healer is quickly running out of mana, that tells me maybe we're in the area that maybe it's too much for us at this moment. Maybe we need to take a step back, or maybe we just need to stay where we're at and just go very slow. That's something that I have to take in consideration.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, okay, so Dragon, what's your thoughts on what you're playing? What are you looking to play?
I'm looking at the either the Ranger, Enchanter, or Cleric myself.
Okay. So let's assume that I'll ask you, Dragon, and then Naylor, what are you looking to play, by the way? What's your thoughts?
I'd really like to see the Necro. I played Necro in EQ, so I'm really waiting for that to come out. But in the meantime, I'd do some kind of caster, probably maybe a wizard.
Okay, so we'll just let's just make some theory, because I love theory crafting. Let's make some theory that we have a baseline group, like you're saying, Day. Every group's different. Every group has different capabilities, possibilities. Like maybe the damage is lower on certain groups because you have 2 warriors and 2 healers, and your damage is a little bit lower. So you can't get mobs down fast enough to clear out higher level content or something. I don't know. Let's just say that there's circumstances that always change based off group group makeup. So whether you have 1 healer or 2 healer, whether you have a CC class or not, whether there's always different factors involved here. But let's say that a standard group, just like a standard, let's just say a standard group is, and again, this is just made up, but let's say a standard group is a healer, tank, and a CC class of some sort. So that's 3, and then let's just say that we have 3 DPS. Well, that's just, again, it's a bad theory or a bad kind of make-believe here, but we're just playing make-believe. So let's say that's the standard group makeup. You have 3 DPS to do substantial DPS. You have some sort of CC or crowd control involved with it. You have a tank to ensure that you're doing that. Maybe an off tank, but we'll say just a tank at this point, and a healer. And on a standard normal day, run of the mill, like the flat line, like this is your baseline. Would you say that if you pull 3 mobs that are 3 levels higher than you, so they're all dark yellow, would you say that that would be a healers going CCs having to lock down 1 or 2 mobs at best at all times to try to keep that in check, and DPS is having to go full out to keep things alive and going? Like, do you consider like that would be an actual like challenging fight? Or would you say on a flat, like I said, this is the baseline, like this is like your quote unquote generic group makeup, and this is a baseline theory or playtime here we're doing. So would you say that baseline group should be very challenged by that, or should that baseline be like 4 levels higher, like where they could take, we'll say they could take 3 mobs, and we'll keep it to 3 mobs, so they could take 3 mobs at 4 levels higher at a baseline, like that would be their kind of default? Does that make sense, or did I go way too far with you?
Well, there's a lot there that you said as far as processing. I know, okay. Like as a healer, if I was playing a healer, cleric, like even in EverQuest, on the progression server with my druid, when I'm healing, there have been pulls like in lower Gook, for example, where I'd start out full mana, and they would pull 4 or 5 mobs, by mistake, and so we'd have 5 mobs in the camp, all red to me, and so I'm sitting there and I'm healing, the tank to keep the tank up, and I'm just having to sit at every point while the CC keeps the others at least 2 to 3 of the mobs, mezzed or whatever at all times. And, it's awesome because, it keeps me on my toes. But at the same time, it's like, I want it to hurry up and, be over because, I don't want to die. I don't want to run out of mana, and I don't want the group mad at me because I didn't keep everybody alive. But, it's pretty exhilarating, I'll be honest with you, because you got that rush going. But at the same time, if without crowd control, it's just going to be an instant wipe.
Okay. So Nayland, I'll give you an opinion here, or I would like an opinion, which is basically, let's say that you have the same generic group content, and like you said, Dragon, you had 4 to 5 red mobs at that point in time. I'm thinking 3 orange mobs could give you that same exhilaration. Like that's what that's personally just my preference. Like I would like to see something like that, where maybe 3 orange mobs that are 4 levels higher than you could give you that same exhilaration, that same fear factor. They could pucker you up a little bit and go, whoa, hey, we need to pay attention, guys. I need some CC over here. I need to make sure that the healers getting a chance to meditate the best they can. All that's going into play. But here's what I would like to hear. Like, Nayland, you can help me out with this a little bit. I'll call on you for this one. Would you think, like, let's say you've had an enchanter as your CC, and Dragon's talking about this example where he's got some higher level mobs and they're having to really lock these things down. Do you think CC should have any sort of like diminishing return on it, or some ability where it becomes almost resisted?
I think naturally, if they're higher than you, I think you have a higher chance of it to be resisted. I don't know about diminishing returns. I think usually it's all kind of random anyway, right? But maybe if they're higher, you have a less of a ceiling that the mez can hold for, and a better chance of them breaking it and resisting it.
Well, yeah, I'm just asking, like, in that circumstance, if Dragon's low on mana and we've got 3 orange mobs, we'll say, for example, and, one of them's going down, but it's going down kind of slow, and we've got 2 of them, do you think you should be able to lock those mobs down for as long as you would like? Maybe that might resist once or twice, but you can still remez them over and over and over again without any sort of fear or problems, really. Would you think that's...
I think the danger there is just you rely on the resist. Like I said, they're going to be higher, they're going to resist more. I think that's where your gambling is. Okay, maybe I'm going to get resisted, or it won't last as long. And I think at orange, that is a scenario, orange or red, where I think if you pull 3 of those, you're probably looking at a wipe situation, or very close to it.
If I could cut in, one thing I would like to see when it comes to enchanters and groups, the enchanter, obviously be able to lock down 1, maybe 2 mobs fairly easy. One other thing, when it comes to more mobs, start spreading it around. Like, you have, only so much, points that would, benefit, go to, like say you had a meta, 10 points to mez a mob, you only have 1 mob, you mez it, 10 points of, your power go to that mob, but the more mobs you have, the that pool gets spread out so that your spell is weaker against them, and it could still mez them, but it would be either shorter duration or a stronger chance to resist the more mobs you have.
Yes, see, yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I think if we just started the fight, and let's say there's 4 mobs and we're taking them one at a time, I would expect the enchanter to be able to CC the other 3, not a problem. But depending on how long the fight is going to be and how many times he or she has to remez those mobs, I think after 2-3 times, it no difference. But when you start going into the areas of, okay, I've mezzed this mob 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, I think around those points, that's when the mob needs to start earning some kind of resistance towards it. I'm not saying that it should be completely immune to being able to CC, but there should be some resistance there that the enchanter is going to have to keep track. It's like, okay, guys, this fight's been going on a long time. I've CC'd this mob 6 times. It's not getting very hard for me to CC him. He still has a chance to CC him, but the more times he does it, the harder it's going to be. I think that is something that needs to be in there. The first couple of times, not a problem. It's easy. After that, that's when it starts becoming a challenge for the enchanter, and that's something the enchanter is going to have to relay to the tank and to the group. Hey guys, we've been fighting this name for like 10-15 minutes now. I've CC'd this one mob. I'm getting close to 6. It's starting to get very hard for me. We need to either switch up the makeup, or we need to take this guy down or something.
Yeah, and so I'll bring this into, so Mocha here in chat said basically mana cost and chance to resist should be enough based off, instead of diminishing returns needing to be put in place. Yeah, I think that's viable, maybe. For me, it really depends, because if I'm thinking about it, like if mana regen is high enough, like if they have enough mana regen to sustain CC on, let's say, one mob, even let's just say one mob, in my mind, how would you justify just being able to CC one mob, chain CC one mob for eternity? Like, that's my thought, is like, how would that, like you said, after those first few times, they should be okay, let's give them that. But then after that, how does that start to weigh in? Because if you're able to just chain CC a mob for eternity, that just sounds, I don't know. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. I'm not really following that track. Instead, I'm following, so Lazy said something here about, I'll try to read this to see if I can understand it. Let me see if this is kind of what I'm thinking as well. Enchanters need a focus meter. Think of a threat meter, but it's focus. The more threat generated by the caster, the less focus they have. Focus would influence the chance of successful rate or lower it, or success rate or lower it. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting with diminishing returns. It might not be a diminishing return, but some sort of way for them, like, to potentially increase resistance. Like, okay, you're messing with my mind, enchanter. I can see you messing with my mind. I know you're messing with my mind. I'm going to continue to build tolerance up to this until you're not messing with my mind anymore. Or I'm going to build some sort of like immunity or resist up to this. It's going to be a lot less likely that you get a successful cast off on me after the first few times, because now I know it's coming. And, now I'm prepared, like mentally, I'm there. Or even the same thing with, and I know Lazy, you pointed this out as well, for not just enchanters, but other classes. Yeah, absolutely. For CC as a whole, like for, let's say that.
So like root.
A root, yeah. Root for a wizard has a root or something. Absolutely. Like, okay, I saw you root me twice. I know it's coming this time. I'm high stepping it. You're not getting me this time. I mean, anything that would potentially CC or lock down a mob so that it's not doing damage or not impacting you in a negative way, and you can control it more or less. Any of that crowd control abilities. Yeah, I think that there's got to be a way for you to not be able to do that for eternity.
Here I remember a good example in EverQuest, the guild that I was in. I want to say we had maybe 6 enchanters on that raid that night. And the name spawn that we were on timer for, the timer was fixing to come up. And we figured we can go in there and clear, and when we get to where the name is, he'll either have spawn or we will only have to wait a little while and he would respawn. We got there and we had to wait an hour. So during that hour, everyone just took a break. We found a nice little corner. It was a safe spot. Didn't have to worry about respawns. We waited. And all 6 enchanters had charmed mobs along the way. And all they did was sit there and recharm them over and over during that hour. And I've always thought that's OP.
Okay. Well, I won't even go into charm just yet. I won't even go down that path. I'll stick to Mez for now. Because I haven't heard anything of charm, so I won't go down that path. That's theory crafting. I'm not there yet, but I get you. I hear you.
Yeah, I feel like it's, to me, I understand there are 2 different mechanics. There are 2 different spells. They function differently, but I feel like it's the same scenario to me. that being able to mess, charm, whatever, there should be diminishing returns the longer you have to sit there and do that. So you can't just say like, okay, we've messed this guy for an hour now, don't have to worry about it, it's easy. No, I think after 2-3 times, then the target should start becoming aware or resistant or something. And that's something that's an extra level of, okay, guys, I've had this guy for too long. We need to take care of him.
Yeah, well, okay, so a few options here. I'm loving this, Lazy. I wish you had a mic to join us, buddy. You need to get one. We'll start doing this more often, by the way, guys, for the podcast as well as the stream. We'll kind of have like a more of an open mic. I love hearing other people's opinions and just like throwing things out there randomly. It gives me great joy to see people come up with things on the spot. So these guys, I can't thank you enough, Day, Dragon, Nayland. I can't thank you enough for chiming in and helping out with this. But Lazy, so you said here, one, building massive threat. Like if a mob is CC'd like more than once, 3 times or 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, whatever it may be, generating a massive amount of CC. The CC generated a massive amount of threat. That threat being so high that it can't be broken. Meaning when that mob comes out of that enchanter is going to be taking the blunt of its fury. Like there's no getting that thing off of that enchanter. It's just going to be what it is. So you better hope that the healer can heal through that. And the enchanter is going to have less armor, less resistance, less mitigation to that damage. So that healer better be ready and have the mana because that enchanter is about to take a beating. So I guess I can see that. That sounds that definitely sounds interesting. I like that thought. That could be a good countermeasure. Like that could make you think about it. But then at the same time, like I said, if an enchanter is able to lock down a mob for eternity, then I think there's other factors that come into play there. Like maybe the enchanter is willing to die, but maybe they're just not willing to give up that mob. That type of stuff. Like there's other things that come into play in my mind. I will say I like that thought though, like CC generating a lot of threat and it being something you have to consider, especially in like small groups where you're pulling 2 to 3 mobs. Like you might not want to use CC all the time. You might want to just kind of burn through those mobs, let them do some damage because that CC, the threat that it generates might be high enough that, if you pull 2 mobs and you're CCing one and then it goes and beats on the enchanter, the amount of heals and the times that the healer has to heal the enchanter to keep them up might just cost them so much mana that it's not worth CCing. Instead, it's worth just allowing the off tank or something to take it and just take those hits and that's less mana cost or something like that while the enchanter does a little bit of DPS or I don't know. Again, I like the thought that, CC being something you have to actually think about. Do I need to use this or not? That's interesting to me. I really like that thought. On the other side of it, let's see here. Dragon, you were saying basically for like root spells as far as CCs, then maybe the mob. I'm thinking when you said I would like to see the mobs have to make a strength check to break the roots. Are you thinking maybe like they kind of get, I guess you could say, enraged or they become furious and they get more strength to break roots?
No, I kind of understand what he's saying because D&D follows that rule. Like when you root the target every few seconds, whatever, it rolls a dice to check against its strength, and if it's stronger than the spell, then it breaks root. Basic scenario.
Because you're not casting root on the mob itself, you're casting it on the ground around him, and the roots are growing up around their feet. And so, instead of him resisting the magic that's on the ground, you're casting on the ground below him. He's got to, basically make a strength check against the strength of the roots to break free. That's what I would like to see, because I think that would really add another aspect to the game, that's not magical and, basically add another, viable method of CC to the round of combat.
No, that sounds really interesting to me. I didn't think about it that way. So D&D strength check is what I'm hearing. Rolling the dice to see if you can get out of it or not. Okay.
Yeah, and I like that idea too because that's
nice.
To me, a shaman or some of the class that can lower a target's attributes or resistance or whatever, being able to do that on top of the root and CC, that just means that That's beneficial. That plays on each of those classes. They're working together.
Yeah, and so with those abilities, with those thoughts, Lazy's throwing out some great things. I love reading through it, so thank you for that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, if you had some sort of water elemental, will-o-wisp, or something that's flying of sorts, would you be able to root that? Is that something that's resistant to root? I don't know. I think that would be really neat to see it to that level of detail, to where some sort of mob that has some sort of levitation or flying capability is resistant to root. Because like you said, Dragon, it's a spell that's you're affecting the ground. You're not affecting the actual mob itself. You're putting things in place that on the ground will either ensnare that or capture that mob, within roots. Now, again, it comes to the thought process for me. Is the mob high enough to avoid, said root ability or something like that? Like, there's always circumstances that go into that and additional thought. But I do like that where certain mob types are definitely resistant to certain types of CC and such. And then also, I think I saw Lazy say something about, if you have mob types that have different, like that are based off of different classes, like you have someone in Black Rose Keep that is a shaman type class. You would want to see them have a shaman type abilities. So they may be able to heal. They may be able to slow, place dots and things like that. Or if they're a cleric type, you would want to see that they have cleric type abilities, things like that. Or even to go to the extreme, or not really extreme, but even go to like the next level. Like if you had some sort of tank type, if let's say that there was a paladin in there. So Day's brother's in Black Rose Keep, and he's not a good guy. I mean, Day bullied him when they were kids. They picked on him, so now he's in Black Rose Keep and he's just beating up kids all day long. So let's say that we go in there and Day's brother's in there and he's a paladin. Does that paladin have some sort of taunt ability to pull, players in the direction that he would like to pull them, or to change their, aggression? Like, for example, if you had like a brother and sister, like one's a paladin, one's not, one's something different, like I don't know, that's theory crafting, guys. Real deep theory crafting. Let's say you have some sort of tank class, like a paladin, and then you have some sort of wizard class, and they're like a duo. They're set up in a pair. Would that tank class be able to pull you off or change your target with a ability? I don't know. I'm just throwing that stuff out there. It's just interesting to think about the possibilities. It's fun to think about possibilities being endless. Is that ever going to happen, or is that possible, or is that something that makes the game enjoyable or fun? I have no idea. I'm just throwing some random stuff out there. So with that, I mean, what's the extreme? Like, I know we're getting close on time, guys, and I'm about to end it, but Dave, real quick, buddy, I'll give you like one last chance here to redeem yourself because you've done so poorly. No, I'm playing. But no, Dave, I mean, what's your extreme? Like, what's the extreme of mob types that would really, like, that you would see the limitation on, that you would see, okay, I don't want taunt on them or something like that?
I don't know. Based on what you just said, I think, let's say we're fighting three mobs, a cleric, a mage, and a warrior, and we don't have CC. All right. So we rooted one, and I'm just letting the warrior beat on me while we take down the cleric. Having him taunt, that's constantly switching my target from the cleric to him, I think that'd be an interesting mechanic, but at the same time, I'm thinking that is going to ignore the hell out of me. So it's just like, it's something that I wouldn't mind seeing, but at the same time, it's something that I would probably grow tired of. So I don't know. It would be interesting to see mobs play along their archetypes. If we're fighting a warrior, have him taunt and do stuff. Maybe my target switches for a few seconds and then it'll automatically switch back. Something like that. I don't know. I think it'd be interesting to see.
Definitely. Okay, so real quick, Dragon, is that crossing the line, or is that still within the realm of possibilities for you?
I can definitely see it. I'm very open to, however they want to try to do things. I'll be honest with you. Regardless of what options we have, I'm sure it's going to be great either way, and so, I'll make do with whatever they give us, whether I like it or not, because, it's just one aspect of the game. So, sometimes you just have to take the good with the bad there. And depending on if it's good or bad, either way, I'm sure it'll work because they've delivered, solid material, up till now so far from what we've seen. And I expect it to continue to be so.
All right, so Nayland, besides Vex's mind reading enchanter that can allow him to see other players' private messages, what is your thoughts on like just a taunt ability in general, like something like that? Is that still within the realm of possibilities for you, or like are you with Dragon on this? You're here for whatever, and you're willing to adapt, or is that something that like you could see being kind of across the line for you?
I don't know. I was just thinking. I mean, that might get annoying. I don't know, but at the same time, like in EverQuest, you can be feared. You can fear and get feared and run away. So I don't know. Maybe you can get your target switched for a couple seconds. I think maybe a stun would be more effective than having your target switched. But I'd be in for whatever.
Okay, cool. Well, on that note, guys, so we're out of time for the podcast tonight. I'm going to go ahead and shut down the podcast, but I do want to say, thanks everyone else for showing up for the podcast. The stream will stay alive, so hang out, guys, from the stream. We'll continue conversation here in a minute. But for the podcast, thank you all for tuning in on Pantheon Radio. I can't thank you enough for the support that we've seen for Pantheon Radio, and I'm continuing to promote it because they're doing a phenomenal job. So if anyone has not already gone to pantheonradio.com or downloaded the app on your iPhone or Android, they just released a new version on the Android. Guys, it's coming along really, really nicely. It was already along, but it's even coming along more now. So if you haven't, go check that out, guys. It's really, really neat. And they do some really phenomenal work when it comes to the spoof commercials, just organizing all the music, ton of different podcasts when it deals with Pantheon on there. So check out the Pantheon Radio application on your iPhone or Android, as well as go check out pantheonradio.com. And for that, we'll go ahead and end the session. We'll be on next week, the Pantheon Radio live show at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday. So tune in for that, and we'll look forward to you then. Thanks, everyone.